Welcome back, friends, to Breaking, Building, and Belonging. This is episode 10, and in this episode, we're going to be doing a reflections on reality. Normally, this is a reflection on the character portrait that we share in the previous chapter. I only gave you a glimpse in the previous chapter. We're saving that character portrait for the print copy of the book, but I think you get the idea from how I talked about hardships, hustles, and hurricanes that can shake the foundations of our life, and the one that shook mine and my sister's lives. And so within those storms, what I want to share is that there's a potential for growth, adaptation, and resilience. And that's what this reflection is all about. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about something I learned from a very wise author and virtual mentor of mine, Brene Brown. Now what we want to do is take a break from the heaviness of that chapter and try to see what I learned out of that chapter and what I've learned over time looking back on that difficult time in mine and my sister's lives. So I start out this chapter with a quote from one of the most amazing thought leaders out there, Brene Brown. And she says, "Anger is a catalyst, an emotion we need to transform into something life-changing, life-giving. Courage, love, change, compassion, justice." And the reality of my childhood was that adaptation was essential. As a parent and a leader, I learned to create consistency, reliability, and psychological safety when caring for or leading others. Managing and coping with psychological safety and physical peril on a daily, often minute-to-minute basis, helped me learn how to be aware of my surroundings and to read people and situations better. And back to Brene, and yet another of her groundbreaking life manuals called Atlas of the Heart. It's a book mapping human emotions. Brene Brown talks about a few things that help solidify these lessons for me. And she talks about growing up in an emotionally unpredictable home as well. She shares, so for me, kind of survival, and also as the oldest, as my job protecting my siblings in what was a very intense family, intense love, intense joy, and then also intense anger and intense lack of predictability about how things were going to go at a very early age. I learned very quickly how to recognize patterns and connections between people's behaviors, their thinking, and their emotions. And I got really, really good at it, to the point where when I was in high school, I thought, maybe I'm like a witch, or I had superpowers. It worked at home, it worked with the coaches, it worked with the teachers. I could look at the people in my class and just say, this is not going to go well, like, gear up. And they would say, well, she hasn't even said anything yet. And I'd say, I can tell by the look on her face, this is not going to go well. So whether you have a superpower or not, lean into your reality and try this. Examine your current opportunities to adapt to change. What are the pressures that feel like the most impossible obstacles or impediments? And what skills are you honing as a result of those pressures? Are there some things you could stop doing that seem to make matters more volatile, and others you might want to lean into and improve at to build a bridge to your next season? What superpowers are you developing or sharpening due to the change you're going through? So I asked myself as a kid, what could I have done differently? This is challenging because we're not well equipped as kids, and we cannot defy the anger and stress with anything but an equal measure of it. And as I shared in the first chapter, my rage was directed into self-pity and self-loathing more than creative ways to move out of my current reality and into the next. And as I'll describe in future chapters, I also carried that anger and hurt with me. I channeled it into fight, flight, and freeze behaviors for way too long. Back to Brene. Brene Brown captures this brilliantly. She says, anger is a beautiful, necessary catalyst for change, but anger needs to ignite something. It's a terrible lifetime companion, but it is very important. It is a very important catalyst to change. When we see something that is unfair, unjust, lacks equity, our response of anger is what fuels change. But to stay in it perpetually, well, there's a lot of physical, emotional, and spiritual costs. So that's the difference. That is the difference. You have to use it and not get stuck in it. Build on the reality. Here's the tips. Think about one set of stressors in your life. This may be a person, but it also might be a job, career, circumstance, or environmental pressure. Draw a line down a piece of paper or on a screen. On one side of the paper or the screen, list the things you cannot control regarding that situation. On the other side, list 2 or 3 things that give you superpowers out of the problem. And when you wake up tomorrow morning, try to improve or practice just one of those new superpowers that can help you pivot beyond your current situation. Determine which superpower will best help you get in a catalyst for change posture. And over the next few weeks, try to pull on those superpowers you wrote down. Revisit your list regularly and work on making the superpower list longer than the I cannot control this stuff list. Now, not everyone's a list maker. If sharing or processing this with someone you trust works better, try that. Perhaps you need to keep this all in your head for now. The mode is less important than the shift in your vantage point and posture. And the change in vantage point is only helpful if you start to take action on it. The more you practice your superpowers and skip the tendency to dwell on the negative side of the list, the stronger your posture will become. Keep the negative side of the sheet in mind. It serves as a reminder of what you are overcoming and the reality you are building upon. But don't get caught, as Brene says, keeping those things at the forefront as your lifelong companions. Admiral Jim Stockdale, a vice presidential candidate and prisoner of war for 7 years, said this best when he said, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be." And that's the end of this episode. Next time, we'll go deeper and talk about building bridges across a very difficult landscape. Until next time, I want to see you soar.